Hello, first year BSc Botany students. Welcome to your class. Today we are going to study about fungi. So, obviously, while studying about them, the first question that arises in our mind is what exactly are fungi? I think you all must be already familiar with the five kingdom classification. You can take a moment to write down all the different kingdoms under the five kingdom classification. Of course, they are there on your screen right now as well. So there is Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, Animalia. Now, of course, all of you are botany students, so you must be thinking, Plantae is a totally different kingdom. Why are we studying them under fungi? Well, because there is one similarity of fungi with the plant kingdom, that is, the fungi have a cell wall around their cells. Fungi are also sort of related to Animalia because the cell wall which is there in the fungi, it is made up of chitin, which is usually also seen in Animalia. Now, we'll talk about Monera. Monera members are usually single cells. They may or may not move. They do have a cell wall, no chloroplast, and other organelles are also present, but there is no nucleus. Basically, the genetic material is not properly well defined, or rather, you can say that it is not defined within a particular membrane. So it's just lying there in the cell. They obviously absorb nutrients through the cell wall and produce their own food by photosynthesis. So these are the Protista members. Most of the bacteria that you know of, which cause a lot of infections, are coming under this. Then come Protista, which are eukaryotic. These are single celled, move by cilia or flagella, or by certain amoeboid mechanisms, like using a pseudopodia. Usually, they don't have any cell wall. They have organelles, including a nucleus, and they also may have chloroplasts. Nutrients are acquired by photosynthesis, ingestion of other organisms, etc. Of course, you can see a very nice picture of amoeba boys from Powerpuff Girls over here. And these are the certain Protista members. Now, coming to fungi, of course, fungi are also eukaryotic, but they are not single-celled organisms. They are multicellular. Yes, of course, they have got a cell wall, and organelles, including a nucleus, is present, but they don't have any chloroplast inside them. That is what makes them different from other organisms. Cell wall which is there, it is made up of chitin. In plants, the cell wall is made up of cellulose. They are microscopic to very large. So basically there's a lot of variation within fungi. Nutrients which are there, they are acquired by absorption. Absorption, how? We'll see it later on. And for the most part, fungi acquire nutrients from decaying material, but fungi also can be parasitic. So these are the wide variety of these fungi that you can see over here. You have yeast. Of course, everybody knows about yeast. You have rhizopus. We'll be talking in detail about rhizopus. You have certain shelf fungi, which are also called as bracket fungi. You can see them over here. And of course, you have got Lepiota, certain toadstools. These are all common names which are there. Of course, coming to kingdom Plantae, they are all eukaryotic, multicellular organisms. Everybody knows about plants, of course, and you being botany students obviously must be knowing them better than anybody else. Mostly the nutrients are acquired by photosynthesis. So obviously they have got these chloroplasts inside them. Okay, but the cell wall which is there, it is made up of cellulose, not chitin as in case of fungi. In kingdom Animalia, which are also eukaryotic, they are multicellular. They move with the aid of cilia, flagella, or certain muscular organism. You yourself are coming under this particular kingdom. Of course, there are no chloroplasts which are present. Animals, they acquire their nutrients by ingestion. So this is your kingdom Animalia, a picture from Lion King. Let that fly away. Now we'll be talking about certain characteristics of the kingdom fungi. Of course, we have already established that they are eukaryotic. Okay, that means that their genetic material is basically enclosed within a particular membrane, which is called as the nuclear membrane. They are absorptive. Mostly they are multicellular, except a few of them, such as yeast. Heterotrophic means most of them are decomposers or they could be parasitic. Mycelium is basically their body. Basically, it is made up of small hyphae, and that hyphae anastomoses and it leads to the formation of mycelium. Anastomosing means it basically forms a network. Okay, we'll see that later on. Of course, cell walls made up of chitin, we have already established that. And what are the reproductive bodies present in the fungi? They are the spores. And of course, they include molds, yeast, rust, and mushrooms that you sometimes, most of you do enjoy eating out in a restaurant. Hyphae. So what is a hyphae? It is a vegetative body of most of the fungi constructed of tiny filaments. And what is mycelium? It is basically a network or an interwoven mat of hyphae. Okay, so here you can see that certain parts are labeled as hyphae and the entire thing is called as the mycelium. Okay, the mycelium itself is producing something called as a fruiting body, or we also call it as in general we call it as a reproductive structure. You can see it over here in this particular fungus. Okay, so these reproductive structures are the one which are producing the spores. So what is this reproductive structure made up of? Nothing but the hyphae, or rather we'll call it as the mycelium. So can you look over here? This is the human hair and this is the width, you can say, or the diameter of a particular fungal hypha. So it's so tiny. And this is the electron micrograph image of your fungal hyphae or fungal mycelium, and this is under a regular compound microscope. Okay, so this is Rhizopus, or rather you are seeing Mucor over here. Now in fungi there are two types of hyphae which are present, septate hypha and cenocytic hypha. Okay, septate hypha leads to a plant body, or rather a fungal body I would say, sorry. So that is called as a multicellular body. Okay, so that is why the hypha, if it is septate, it will be called as multicellular because the walls are divided by septa. So here you can see septa is nothing but a wall between two cells, you can say. So that is leading to the formation of different cells in particular fungus. What is cenocytic hypha? Cenocytic hypha is sort of a continuous cytoplasmic mass. It is multinucleate because obviously there is nothing dividing the hypha over here. There is no wall you can see except for the cell wall. Obviously between two nuclei there is no wall which is present. So basically this is having no septa. So this hypha is called as a cenocytic hypha. These two terms are going to be referred to again and again. So that's why I am mentioning them over here, and obviously we need to know about these two terms when you're studying about fungi. Another term that you need to know about is Haustoria. What is a Haustoria? It is a modified hyphae found in parasitic fungi. What is the function? It absorbs nutrients from the host, of course. So as I was telling you, I'll tell you about how the fungi are absorbing nutrients. That is by the function of these Haustoria. Some fungi even have hyphae which are adapted for preying on animals. So here you can see a nematode. And nematode is trapped inside a particular ring-shaped structure which is formed by a particular fungus. So it's very interesting. Even here you can see that ring-shaped structure which is formed by this particular fungus. So fungi, as I had told you, they are decomposers, they can be parasitic, and also here you can see they can be predatory as well. So this is just an exception that you're seeing over here, but most of them are decomposers or parasitic. Okay, so here if you want to talk about Haustoria, so here you can see how the Haustoria are penetrating inside the cell. So here very nicely you can see a sort of a tree-like structure is being formed over here. Okay, so this is how the fungi are absorbing their nutrients from the plant cells. Now here they have given the example of a plant cell. Fungi also infect human cells or animal cells. So broadly, fungi can be divided into 1 to 3 different classes. Okay, this is a very general classification. Lower fungi, higher fungi, and imperfect fungi. Lower fungi includes zygomycetes. They are also called as zygomycetes, and one of the examples is mucor. Now, mucor you must have seen growing on a very old bread. Okay, mucor and rhizopus both grow on that moldy bread that you eat. Under higher fungi, you have again two different categories. One of them is ascomycetes, or we are also call them the example over here is yeast. The other one is basidiomycetes. Okay, the example is rust, which is basically caused by Puccinia. Puccinia is causing rust on certain plants. Mushrooms, which you eat and love very much, these are also coming under basidiomycetes. Imperfect fungi are also called as deuteromycetes. Okay, one of the examples is Penicillium and Aspergillus. Now actually you see one name over here, Eurotium, and you're seeing one name over here, Aspergillus. Both of them are one and the same fungi. Okay, Aspergillus and Eurotium both are the same fungus. Only thing is that Aspergillus is the stage which is the asexual stage of the fungus, and Eurotium is the sexual stage of this fungus. So this imperfect fungi which are there, these are including all the fungi which are basically not having or not showing any sort of a sexual stage, or maybe that sexual stage has not been found by any scientist for that particular fungus. That is why that particular fungus is included in imperfect fungus or imperfect fungi. So initially nobody knew about the sexual stage of Aspergillus, but when they found it out, basically they thought this is different and this is different, but then they got to know this is one and the same thing, and when they found out the sexual state they came to know, okay, that is Eurotium itself. So they picked Aspergillus from imperfect fungi and they placed them under ascomycetes. Ascomycetes, they produce acai. Okay, we don't need to go into that much detail today. Okay, basidiomycetes, which are producing basidia. Okay, so all these things we'll come to know later on. Now let us study and let us pull the curtains for the study of the life cycle of Rhizopus. Okay, so you can see one moldy bread over here and something growing on this. This is basically Rhizopus or Mucor. When you grow Rhizopus or Mucor on a plate, it looks like this. Plate means what? Basically, this is a petri dish. So, Rhizopus is what? It is a saprophytic fungus which grows on organic matter. What is the organic matter over here? Let's go back. So, organic matter is this bread over here, which is being utilized for nutrition or for acquiring nutrition by Rhizopus. Grows on bread, and it is often called as bread mold. It grows on fruits also, jams, jellies, pickles also. You must have seen, if you keep fruits or jams or jellies for very very long time outside, not in the fridge, you're keeping them outside in heat, you will see some moldy growth over them. So that moldy growth is usually this particular Rhizopus. This is also called as black mold because of the sexual structures or the asexual structures which are formed on it, and they are sort of black in color. That's why it is also called as black mold. So you can see over here, you can see the asexual stage over here. So this is this black thing which is coming out of the bread. This is also a very magnified image of the moldy bread. Much more magnification in the next slide you can see. So what is the classification? The division is Eumycophyta, class is Phycomycetes, subclass A Flagellates, order is Mucorales, family Mucoraceae, and genus is Rhizopus. Okay, Rhizopus and Mucor are sort of allied genus. Okay, you don't need to remember the reasons behind putting Rhizopus under this division, class, subclass, order, family, because that is there for your next year. Okay, so you just need to know about the classification so you can practice it at home. Now, what is the vegetative structure of Rhizopus? So this fungus consists of white cottony mycelium. White cottony mycelium. You must have seen it growing on the bread. The young mycelium, it consists of profusely branched aseptate and multinucleate hyphae. We were talking about the types of different types of hyphae, we had talked about septate hyphae and aseptate hyphae. So basically, aseptate hyphae, you can also call it as cenocytic. Okay, you have to remember this term. In the older mycelium, 3 different types of hyphae are observed. Okay, so there the hyphae basically differentiates. How does it differentiate? Now, obviously, the fungus needs to get some sort of a nutrition out of it, so it makes something called as rhizoids. That is why the name comes Rhizopus, because the hyphae, it penetrates the substratum, say in case bread, and it forms rhizoids. Rhizoids, why the word oid is there? Because these are not true roots, these are just root-like structures. That's why rhizoids. It also produces horizontal elongated hyphae, which are also called as stolons, and upwardly growing sporangiophores are also produced. Okay, which consist of sporangia. We'll see that in the diagram. So here you can see this is a image from a compound microscope, okay, under low power itself. So you can see horizontal hypha, which is a stolon. You can see numerous rhizoids which are there, okay, and you can see a very elongated hypha again, okay, ending in a globular structure. This globular structure is called as a sporangium, and this elongated structure is called as the sporangiophore. The word "phore" means stalk. So a stalk bearing a sporangia is called as sporangiophore. Okay, so this is about Rhizopus. So here in this diagram it is much clear. Okay, this is the example of Rhizopus stolonifer. We are only talking about the genus right now, not going into the details of any sort of a species. Okay, so just in general way we'll be learning about it. So you can see here stolon, which is sort of a horizontal branch, which is again at intervals giving out sporangiophores towards the upper side and rhizoids towards the lower side, which penetrate the substratum. Okay, and Above that, you can see this globular structure which is called as a sporangium. Inside the sporangium, there is some sterile structure also which is called as this sterile structure. You can see it over here as well. A dome shaped structure which is also called as columella. Okay. So this is just the dispersion which is being there. Okay, the sporangia release the spores, wind blows the spores, and the spores then fall on a new bread, and the spore starts to germinate, and the mycelium is formed, and the mycelium starts to give out rhizoids towards the lower side, and towards the upper side it starts to give out the sporangiophores. Very nice representation of rhizopus growing, showing the beautiful rhizoids over here. Okay, and this is the sterile columella which I was talking to you about. So asexual reproduction happens by spore formation. Spores are formed in the form of sporangia, as you have seen already. Okay, and where are the spores and the sporangia produced? Basically the sporangia, they are produced on the sporangiophores, which are erect, which are hyaline. Hyaline means they are transparent, they are unbranched. Can you see any branching over here? No, all these sporangia are arising from one single point. So they are unbranched, aseptate, that is cenocytic, and they are produced in clusters. You can see it over here, produced in clusters at intervals. And just opposite each group of rhizoidal branches they are present. So here you have the sporangia, and just opposite to that you have the rhizoid. That's why this genus is called as Rhizopus. Each sporangium, if you look at it, it is spherical. It is cut off from the sporangiophore due to the formation of sort of a septum, a wall. Okay, this is again the microscopic image, another microscopic image. Okay, can you see the rhizoids over here? Very nicely you can see the rhizoids. Again, the rhizoids over here. This is again the same picture that I was talking to you about. Again, now here you get a sort of a clarity about the columella. Again, another picture, another picture. So sporangium is differentiated, as I told you, into a dome-shaped structure which is called as the columella in the center, and the outer sporiferous region which is consisting of a lot of spores which are also called as aplanospores. Each aplanospore has a thick wall enclosing a protoplasm and a reserve food material. Obviously, because it has to germinate, that is why it has some sort of a reserve food material inside it. Spores germinate to form new mycelia. What about the sexual reproduction? Sexual reproduction can be of two types over here, okay, and it is done by the formation of gametangia. Okay, so in Rhizopus, two types of gametangia are formed, or basically two types of phenomena are occurring. Okay, one is Rhizopus species. Some of the species are homothallic, some of the species are heterothallic. Homothallic means two gametangia which are there, which are fusing together, because this is sexual reproduction. So one of the strains has to be a minus strain, the other has to be a plus strain. Okay, so when this homothallic Rhizopus species which is there, when the gametangia in that species they fuse together, okay, they are formed on the same thallus. That is why they are called as homothallic. Heterothallic means that the fusing gametangia which are there, they are formed on different thalli. Okay, so here you can see a very nice image of two different gametangia fusing, and in the center they are forming something called as a zygospore. A very magnified image. So this is, you can say this might be the plus strain, this might be the minus strain, and when they are fusing together, okay, so this is one, you can say the male gametangia, the female gametangia, and when they are fusing together, they are sort of forming something called as a zygospore. Okay, you cannot know which one of them is plus or minus, male or female. I just gave you an example just to clarify. This is the electron micrograph image which you can see, and you can see the formation of a zygospore over here. Okay, So first thing what happens is that I'll just show it to you with a pen. So first thing that happens is that some sort of progametangia is formed. Okay, some sort of progametangia is formed. Then to each progametangia a septa is formed, and now this is called as gametangia. Okay, this is called as gametangium. When the septa is formed, this part is called as the gametangium. Okay, this also is called as the gametangium. Okay, and when they are fusing together, they will form something called as a zygospore. Okay, they form something called as a zygospore. This is your zygospore. Okay, fine. So this is about the sexual reproduction that we were talking about. And this is the entire process which is happening. So you can see the gametangia which are fusing together, forming the zygospores or the zygosporangium. Okay, so once the zygosporangium and the nuclei of the zygosporangium fuse together, they start forming a new sporangium. Okay, that new sporangium, you can see it is giving out a sporangiophore, and on that there is a sporangium which is formed. Sporangia ke andar hoga spores. So inside the sporangia there will be spores, and the spores are now being released. These spores can continue the asexual reproduction, but when the conditions are adverse, they can go for the sexual reproduction. So you have plus mating type, minus mating type, forming the progametangia, gametangia, and the zygospore. So this entire cycle keeps on going on. Okay, so this was what was about our rhizopus. Okay, so you can get to your books and you can read more about it. Okay, we have covered a lot about the asexual sexual reproduction today. We talked about what are fungi, what are the different five kingdom classification which is there. Okay, then we talked about what each kingdom is there and what are the characteristics of each kingdom, and then we talked about what are the characteristics of the kingdom fungi, because that is the kingdom which is the most important one, which you are basically studying right now. And then we talked about rhizopus, its sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So you can see this presentation again and you can revise, and you can also open your books and study from them. Okay, so thank you very much for today. I'll end my class today. Thank you and study well, stay home, stay safe.